All right, Christian Logue, welcome to 69 Faces of Rock. How are you doing today?
Oh, fantastic. Very well.
Excellent. Great to have you with us. So tell me, how did you put this latest version of Savage Grace together?
Well, um, back in 2019 in December, I finished writing my book. And so it took me 7 years to write the book. And then I put up a website and started selling the book. And my agent friend, Matt Ferrara, he said, you got to do a new album because you got the book, you got the website. It's only natural you put out a new album. And I said, I'm not going to do a new album unless we have a fantastic singer. So he said, I know a guy. And I listened to the tape from Gabriel Cologne. And I said, okay, I like this singer. We're going to use him. And I'm going to start working on the pre-production. And then in March of 2020, I saw Trump on TV with Fauci. And I said, I know what they're going to do because I've been told about this in 1996. So I left the United States and I went to Mexico. And then I called Matt and I said, we're going to start working on the record now because I knew nobody would be able to work. I knew I would be able to get great musicians because they would have no work. So I contacted Gabriel Cologne and recruited him. And then I recruited a guitarist named Kiko Shred from Brazil. And we recruited a drummer named Marcus Dota from Brazil and a bass player named Fabio Carrito from Brazil. And then we started working on the production from there.
What kind of chemistry are you enjoying with this new lineup?
The band I have now is really a great group of people. And I also added a guitarist from Mexico City. His name is David Sandoval. And he's an excellent lead guitarist. And so we have a powerful musical ability and visual.
How would you describe the songwriting process for this new album? What was that like?
Okay. The songs, Sign of the Cross, Helsinki Nights, and Barbarians at the Gate. I had already written those songs in 2010. And I was going to record those in 2010. But I had a problem with the record company. So we didn't do it. So when I started to write the new album, I said, okay, I have these three songs ready to go. And so I'm going to write 7 more. And it took me about 4 months in Mexico to write the other 7 songs. I just hunkered down and just concentrated on writing. I didn't do anything else. And there wasn't a lot to do at that time because of all of this ridiculous operation that was going on. So I just concentrated on writing. And I got the songs together in about 4 months.
Now, the album is already being sent out, so people are hearing it. What are the initial reactions you're getting from press and fans?
The reaction from the press people that I've been doing interviews with in Europe and in USA has been unbelievably positive, far more positive than I thought. And I've been doing interviews with some guys who were fans of Savage Grace going back to the early 80s. Like there's a guy in America named the Pipe Man. He has a show in Florida. He was one of our fans in 84 in LA. I knew him. And now he has his own show. He loved the record. The press has been overwhelmingly positive. From the fans, I haven't heard from fans yet, as they haven't been hearing all of the tracks. But the videos that we have on YouTube for the first 3 singles, Automaton, Star-Crossed Lovers, and Rendezvous, we're at 100,000 views on Automaton. We're at 60,000 on Star-Crossed. And so that's, for a band that hasn't released anything in 37 years, I think we're off to a good start.
Definitely. How does Sign of the Cross compares to any of the older records that you've done?
They're nothing like them. And I'll tell you why. This album is set in 1978. It is what you would call a prequel or a retro release. It takes place before Savage Grace even started. I wanted to capture the zeitgeist of 1978 in the USA, when there were big arena concerts every night in every city in America. You could go to a big show and there'd be all the big bands would be out playing, like Ted Nugent, Cheap Trick, Foghat, REO Speedwagon, UFO Outlaws, Molly Hatchet 30. All of these bands would be out constantly. And people would have tailgate parties and drink beer and meet girls, play music in the parking lot. It was a huge year for hard rock music in America. And I wanted to recreate that time. And musically, I wanted to create the ambience of 3 albums: Sin After Sin, Stained Class, and Killing Machine, all Priest classics. And because at that time, those Priest records were very controversial. They were really doing something different. And that it overlaps the time frame that I wanted to create for this record.
How do you plan on promoting this record? Will there be a tour? What's your plan of attack?
Okay. The label Massacre Records, which just yesterday they took all the rest of the territories that I had open for the world. So now Massacre has the license for the entire world except Brazil, which I gave to Hellion Records. But now that they have the whole world, they've acted. We have 3 full-time press people working this record now. And they're bringing me interviews and putting the album out for review. So that's the first stage of the press attack, the publicity. From there, we want to tour South America this summer, and then we want to tour Europe in the fall, and then the USA next year.
Now, last year you performed at a festival in Mexico, which was probably first time playing live in a long time. How did things go?
Well, the show overall I thought was good, but the problem was I only had 2 rehearsals with that band, and that was a band called Voltax. They're very big in Mexico. They have about 6 albums out. They've been around for 17 years. They're a very good band, but we only had two rehearsals. So, as far as to my standards, the show was a little bit loose. But for 2 rehearsals, it was very good, and the crowd loved it. The people there were very happy, and it was good to get back on stage playing guitar again. And from that show, I made a lot of good content. That's how I met David Sandoval. And so the show itself was very successful.
Mm-hmm. In your opinion, Christian, what makes this current version of Savage Grace still relevant?
First of all, the songs. At the heart of Savage Grace, the reason that we are in the history books where we are is because of the songs. You have to have great songs, no matter what style of music you play. If you don't have good songs, you don't have anything. So the songs on this album, every song on this album is powerful. There's no weak tracks. There's no filler material. Every song is powerful. The production is powerful. The vocals are incredible. The guitar work is incredible. The drums are incredible. So, I mean, it's bulletproof. I don't see what there is not to like on this album.
Excellent. All right, you mentioned history a few times, so let's talk a little bit of history. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some records, and please give me any memories, any anecdotes, anything that comes to mind when you see the album. So here we go, the very first release.
Okay, well, that was the first release on Metal Blade Records, and that we worked with Bill Metoyer. And of course, well, we were a very green band, but Brian East had a lot of studio experience before. Kenny Powell had done some things before. So it was a very green band, but I think it was a good start.
Yeah, it was a great EP. Your first album, Master of Disguise.
Okay, this is when I really started to get together as a songwriter. This is when I really concentrated on I wanted to make only great songs. I didn't want to make any filler and somebody buy the record, they say, oh, I like one song, but the rest is not good. So this is when I really started to get it together as a songwriter. And we were lucky enough to have an incredible vocalist like Mike Smith. And that's really set us off on the right track.
Okay. After the Fall from Grace.
Okay. That was a challenge because we were desperately trying to find a singer to replace Mike Smith. We had a record contract. We had a commitment to make an album. And it was a very difficult decision for me to be the singer on that because nobody thought I could do it. And then we needed to find a drummer. We didn't have a drummer. So we found Mark Markham about 3 weeks before recording. So that album was like a miracle of all of these last minute things that came together. But it was it's a masterpiece. I mean, a lot of people like that album the best. Our guitarist, David Sandoval, he thinks After the Fall is the best album. So I'm very happy with it.
How would you say those albums did for you back in the 80s?
Well, as far as sales, they did very, very well. Master Disguise in Europe with Black Dragon, I think that really launched their label. From there, they went on to sign a lot of other good bands. After the Fall from Grace did very, very well in Europe. We toured there. Then we licensed it to Metal Blade for America. We licensed it to VAP for Japan. So sales-wise, those records did very, very well.
Then you have Ride Into the Night, the EP.
Yeah, okay. This was, we wanted to make an album, but we had major management at that time. And our manager told us, guys, no more speed metal. We're not going to do that anymore. We got to get you into the big leagues. Now, I had already a commitment to Semaphore Records for the EP. So we said, okay, we're going to just do these 4 songs, and then we're going to concentrate on the new sound. So we did that EP. Then we went on the road with Motorhead for 20 dates in the USA. And when we came back, that's when we seriously started working on being a much bigger band. So it was a transitional record.
When you look back at your output from the 80s, how do you feel about all of it?
Oh, I'm very satisfied with what we did then, because I mean, we're in the history books for those records. I mean, everybody, they're pretty much accepted as classic records. There's not really much argument. We're not really somebody say, oh, wait, they were just another, heavy metal band. Those albums are classics. And they, if you go on YouTube, they have hundreds of thousands of views on all of those albums. And now when we put out the new record, Sign of the Cross, people are going to hear our new sound, and we're going to attract a lot of new fans. And then they're going to go back and say, what else did these guys do? And then they're going to discover all the old music that we did.
To coincide with that, I also noticed that you had released those albums again recently.
Yeah, well, people keep wanting to license them. So, in 2010, I licensed them. And then in 2021, I licensed them to Hammerheart Records, to a small company up in Sweden, licensed some of them. And then No Remorse from Greece licensed them. So, and 3 companies in Brazil licensed them. So there's obviously still a demand for them. And our deal with Massacre was probably the biggest deal in the history of their company. So they're totally behind us. And they've not only are they putting out Sign of the Cross, they've licensed my entire catalog for the world.
Right. There's the New York tapes.
Okay, this is a collection of demos that we did from 1989 to 1991 when we were trying to do more of a hard rock sound like the Cult or AC/DC. And I think there's some excellent guitar work on there. I like those songs. My vocals aren't very strong on those songs. It's not speed metal, but I still listen to it. I still like those songs very much. We had a lot of good times when we were touring on those songs for 3 years through America and Canada. We didn't just stop. We were the biggest club draw in New York City. We were constantly touring on the East Coast with bands like Helix and Tangier and Circus of Power. So, I have a lot of good memories from that time.
Now, the early 90s were very confusing years for heavy metal. What was it like for you?
Well, 1990, 89, 90, 91, into early 92 for us was fantastic because we went through 3 major management deals. We lived like kings. I wrote a 700-page book about my life in Savage Grace, and all of the times that we had during those years were unbelievable. Maybe the most incredible years of the band's history. Even though everybody thought we were dead and we weren't doing anything, we were actually incredibly active. And so those years for us were great. But by 92, nobody wanted metal. Everybody wanted Seattle music and all of this. So we saw that there was no hope for us by that time.
When you look...
even though in 1991 we were offered a major record deal with MCA Records, which I turned down. Thank God, because had I signed with them, I'd still be paying them back.
When you look back at your time from the 80s, do you have any regrets about anything?
Yeah, I could, but you see, really, it was all my fault. The reason that I tried to do too many things. To try and be a lead singer and a lead guitarist like that is almost impossible. And even though we really did try to find singers, we went through hundreds of singers. And so did Metallica. They were in the same, they were auditioning all the same people we were. But Metallica style of music, you don't need a great singer to do that. For our music, you got to have a great singer. And for me to do that and play guitar at the same time was extremely difficult. So the band, it lacked a certain focus, and decisions had to be made. And when we decided to become more of a hard rock type group, it was a lot easier for me to front the band. So all of these are decisions that people make, and sometimes they do very well, and sometimes they don't. So that's what happened.
Yeah. So what lessons from the past are you reapplying to what you're doing now?
The number one lesson that I've learned is you have to have good songs. I don't care what kind of music you have, how great your singer is, how great the guitarist. You have to have songs. That is number one. So everything that I do is about the songs. And when people listen to this album, most of the press people that I've talked to, they say, after I had one guy said, I've listened to your record 12 times, and I've got half the record stuck in my head already. I can't stop singing these songs in my head. That's how it should be. Okay. I listen to bands all the time, and they don't know how to write songs. And that's what holds them back. You can only go so far on image and bullshit. You know, Motley Crue, okay, they've gone 40 years on just the look, but most bands cannot do that. You have to have songs. And so that is the thing that's the most important to me.
Finally, what are your hopes for the new album?
I hope that we get a strong enough response from the fans that will support us being on tour for the next 2 years. So if the album does very well, we'll be able to do that. If it doesn't do very well, then going out on tour is going to be difficult. So we need the fans to support this record so that we can get back on the road.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate you supporting us.